I'll throw the recording. Brendon, thank you. This is, I said it when I got to chat to Dan the other day, a real treat. Appreciate your time. It's been a while, although I did see you in Christchurch not that long ago, and that was quite a good 3 days down there.
Yeah, it was good, mate. It was good to catch up with you as well. It's always nice to see familiar faces after a long time of us. Yeah, it was good to see you and a few of the other fellas that we played with back in the day too. So yeah, it was a short test match, but the New Zealand boys played pretty well against a very good Indian side at home.
You're still hugely proud of what they're doing and how they're going and how they look from the outside.
Absolutely. I think Australia was obviously a bit of a setback this year for them, but if you look at the whole 12-month period that they've just had as a cricket team, and you think of the challenges which at the start of the year when you said you're going to face a very good England side, you're going to face, a World Cup winning England side, you're going to face them at home, you're going to face Australia away, who we know is so difficult in their own conditions, and then you're going to face the number one team in the world in India back in your own conditions. And if you could say that you're going to win 2 out of those 3 series and win them pretty convincingly, I think people would have taken that. So I think it's definitely a pass mark, another step in the right direction, albeit, Australia was a bit of a reality check that touring can be very difficult, and the hostility that Australian cricket teams play with at home and touring there, well, the challenges that brings, probably exposed a couple of areas in the New Zealand side, but they shouldn't be too downbeat, albeit a missed opportunity. I'm sure they'll now go away, and especially with this enforced layoff too, I think it'll give them a good opportunity to be able to say, right, what do we really need to do to move from a very, very good cricket team to one of our best ever cricket teams, and what areas do we need to cover off?
What do you reckon? That's on the spot. Apologies.
That's all right. That's how it rolls. But I think I would like Kane Williamson to have more control personally. I think he knows where this team's been and where it's arrived at now. And I think my gut feel is that he knows where to take the team. And I think after being in charge for as long as what he has, the natural tendency for someone like Kane is probably to withdraw. I'm guessing here. I don't know this. I'm guessing. But I'd like him to actually have more control, because I think he understands that team so well. He's got such an incredible cricket brain. He's a strong leader, and I'll be looking to lay more responsibility at his feet and ask him, if you're coaching that side or if you're running New Zealand cricket, ask him what he needs to take that team to the next level, because he's been in that journey. He's been on the journey right from the start. And so no one has, probably him and Tim Southee and maybe the manager Mike Sandel, outside of those 3, no one has the same IP that those guys possess over a period of time. So I think if they give him more responsibility, then we'll really see the Kane Williamson's personality come out on that cricket side, and we've seen how good he is as a cricketer, how classy he is, and I think the New Zealand cricket team could go to the next level. There's a couple of areas which need tidied up. I think Henry has been very good so far in his career. At batting at number 5, he's been exceptional, but just the last little while he's come off, so he needs to just improve his game slightly, which he will. He's a good player, and we've seen that with his performance transitioning to the top of the order in one-day cricket. I think we've got to continue to be loyal with selection around your seam bowlers in particular. I think they got that wrong in Australia, and I was quite vocal about that. It's not a criticism of personalities. It's just a criticism of the decision, which I felt was wrong to me. Tim Southee, Trent Boult and Neil Wagner, you got 3 absolute diamonds there who all know each other's roles so well, and they're all happy to fill those roles. Yes, there's some development around that. Cole Jamieson's been exceptional in favourable conditions early in his career. But don't go away from what's worked for so long and has been so good for you. And that's been able to bowl teams out, take 20 wickets through a test match. And each of those 3 guys, Southee, Boult and Wagner, have worked out how to do that. So I think that's a big key. Finding the spinner is going to be a real big key for them as well.
Did you want more Did you want more on your plate in the same way that you're sort of suggesting that Kane might want more on his plate? Did you want more, or did you get the more that you wanted?
So I was probably very fortunate that I had a coach who we had a very good relationship anyway with Mike Hesson. Yeah. He knew my personality, he knew how I liked to play the game, and I knew his, and you know, there was a developing friendship as well as a working relationship, and I think we complemented each other really well. Very few times when I asked for something did I ever get turned down. There was always questions and robust conversations around stuff, but sometimes you need that too, because then it validates the point that you're trying to make, or the decision which you've said. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Kane and I have very different personalities too, and when I was captain in New Zealand, I knew it was only ever going to be for a short period of time. A, where I was at in my career, but also B, the style of leadership that I had as a player was all encompassing, and so that it just was never going to have a long lasting effect. However, we probably needed that at the time.
You did want to run the show. Yes, it was you and Mike, but you did want to be, when you said all encompassing, you did want it to be, this is my team, this is my crew, and I want as much control as I can, because I have a great feeling about what we can do as a team, as a group of men.
Yeah, but we definitely worked together, and Hess and I had a lot of conversations, away from the group, where he would challenge me privately, but would always support me publicly. And when I say publicly, not just in the media and outside the group, but support me publicly within the environment too. And that's really important, because you cannot have any signs of weakness or chinks in the armour when it comes to your captain-coach relationship. And I'm not saying that these guys have got that. I'm sure they get on really well, and I don't know. But from my experience with Mike Hesson and myself, there was always that robust conversations behind closed doors. But whenever we were talking to the team, it was a united front, regardless of whose idea or whose decision it was. And I think that's what really worked really well. And also the senior players. I guess to take back to my style of leadership at the time too, it wasn't just all-encompassing from that on the field, but it was all-encompassing off the field too. I really invested myself in guys' lives and relationships and their motivations for why they were playing. And I had to, because A, that's the person I am. I like to do that. And also B, I was going to ask them to go to some pretty uncomfortable positions as cricketers, and take some big risks. And they needed to know that in their short chance that they have as a player in their career, that wasn't going to come back and bite them. And I was going to leave them standing at the door come selection time, when I'd asked them to do something which was uncomfortable. So I needed to build that trust within them. And I think, for majority of the time and majority of the team, I think that happened, and hence some of the relationships that I have now with the guys will last way, way longer than any of our careers ever will.
Hey, interesting point you just said about asking some players go to asking them to do things that they may not be comfortable with. Now, something I looked at from the outside looking in when you and Hess took over as coach and captain, the transition, that was a tough time. But following that transition, the thing that stuck out for me was that you both had players in the team that were very good in their positions, and very rarely, if any time, did they even bat out of position or bowl out of position. They played their position, and they played their style from their domestic cricket. Was that something that you wanted them to do, or was that something that just happened? You just happened to have the right mix of ingredients to create a team that you wanted?
Look, I think it needed to happen at some point, but was that the catalyst? I'm not sure. I think our conversations were always around, for want of a better metaphor, was getting the right people in the right seats on the bus heading in the right direction. And that was how we were going to try and build simplicity. That was how I can't get any words out today. That was how we were going to try and build the New Zealand cricket team. It was a matter of painting a vision of where we think we can go, being on this incredible journey of success and failure, but we're going to head out into the unknown, and hopefully we're going to look back in time and say we had a great experience. But right now, who sits in what seats on that bus?
You did,
and are you comfortable in those seats?
You weren't picking the best players in the country, I don't think. You were picking the best players in their positions in the country. Yeah?
Well, it all depended on what that seat required. And then it was a matter of, to drill it down further from that, then it was the conversations that you had with those guys. It's like, right, you're in this seat on the bus. Here's the role that we see for you. We believe that suits you. Do you believe that that suits you?
Yeah.
And if you had both buy-in, then it was like, right, now what do you need to be able to become really as good as you can in that role that you've been given? And then we had other people behind the scenes who we also had earmarked for some of those roles. If the initial one didn't work out, you'd never have those conversations publicly, but you had to have that level of planning. And I think guys like the Southies and the Wagners and the Bolts, but they were always around New Zealand cricket.
Yeah.
But they just weren't necessarily sitting in the right seats or quite understood. Mm-hmm. And that's no one's fault. And it may have just been a period in their careers where they weren't ready to mature yet either, and they had been investing in what they were going to be in the long term. But I think what we're able to do is by getting them seated in those appropriate seats and giving them real clear role definition, I think, and also understanding them off the field and what their motivations were and who they were as people, and watching them grow up and develop as relationships and have kids, etc., they then really bought into what we were trying to achieve, and they then found a level of skill and performance which probably, just moved the marker in the sand a little bit further forward. And then since then they've kept moving it forward. There was, I think they became a bit more comfortable. And you're not going to get it right with anyone, with everyone as well. Obviously some guys who we lost along the way. And
you didn't have to shift too many guys around the batting order, for example. You didn't have guys going from opening to number 4. You didn't have guys batting at 5 or 7. You didn't have to shift too much that I can remember. It all looked, if a number 4 needed replacing, a number 4 from domestic cricket would basically come in. Intentional? Just happened?
Probably a bit of both, mate, to be honest. And you lean on your coach and your selectors for that stuff too, because you can't be across everything as a captain. You can't see every domestic game. You can't see the quality of runs. You see the numbers, but you got to dig deeper than the numbers too. I think, if someone scores 1,000 runs on a flat wicket with short boundaries in a fast outfield, or if someone scores 600 runs on a green seamer with, which swings around, then what's more valuable, and who's going to be able to transition into international cricket and into the role that is going to potentially open up. So that's, you've got to rely on some other people, and that's the thing, you've got to trust other people and that they're in it for the right reasons too, and that's why the relationships and the understanding off the field is so important.
Hey, mate,
but we didn't get it right with everyone, and we lost some, and some of them were support staff as well, and that was really hard to let go of those people. But when you're from a small country, as you know, you can't stand and go toe-to-toe with the big boys resource-wise. So you need to do things way differently. You need to be innovative, you need to be dynamic, you need to be creative, and the only way you can build those things is to get total buy-in from your group. So you can't have any chinks in the army. You need to all be on the same bus, all heading in the right direction.
Did you, was that a philosophy that could you have kept that philosophy through your career? Did you start that way and finish that way? Or is that something that you probably got a little bit more professional about or personal about?
Yeah, I definitely didn't. I don't think I started that way. I think when I started, it was very much about you're morphing into the environment which you're going into, but you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to get in the team and get enough runs so that you can get another game, just to try and hopefully that's the day that you stand up and you show the world what you're capable of. And there's lots of guys who get those opportunities but aren't, for one reason or another, they're not able to take them, or the luck doesn't go their way. So early in my career, it was just a matter of get a performance just to stay in the team, get another performance, stay in the team, do enough, always work hard to try and not allow someone to question your work ethic or your desire.
you said to me one day, "Don't give them a reason to drop you." I was like, "Yeah, that's fair."
Well, that's right, and
Yeah.
I mean that's the brutality of the sport that we play, right? Like it can, based on selectors change or a coach changes, and all bets are off. It's a completely different setup, and that's just what that's what you're dealing with, especially as a young player coming into the game. So you've got to do everything you possibly can to stay in the team. To, as I said to you that one day, not give them a reason to drop you. A little bit like as a leg spinner, just bowl to stay on when you get the opportunity with the ball in hand. Just find a way, spread your field if you have to, reduce risk if you have to, but do what you have to stay on. And then once you're on and you're into your work, and then as your career's developing, then that's when you can start to be a little bit more, take a few more risks, and then that's when your talent and your level of performance can actually increase. But you've got to find a way to just hang in there for a while.
Hey, what's it like spending more time at home now, given how full on it used to be? And yeah, you're still here, there, and everywhere. But what's it like spending a summer in New Zealand like you are pretty much at the moment? Yeah, you're sort of zipping around New Zealand a little bit, but good feelings.
Yeah, it is great, mate. Obviously, I'm meant to be in India at the moment for IPL coaching Kolkata, which is something I'm really looking forward to when the time comes. And not, we're still working, we're still coaching and that from afar, putting all the systems and that in place. But the actual on the ground and the pressure coaching period will happen once the IPL starts. So I can't wait for that. I feel very privileged to, straight out of playing, really, to have the opportunities that I've had via KKR and also Trinidad as well, TKR, to be able to transition into something I think I'll love, which is coaching and helping people. And then through the summer, we've just had, I spent a bit more time at home, and also Australia, where I had the family with me. I was doing the broadcasting for both Channel 7 over in Australia, which was fantastic. And I loved working with Ricky Ponting, especially, and all the crew over there. Was a really cool experience. And then obviously back in New Zealand, covering the New Zealand summer too, where I was sort of traveling around a little bit. But now I've been home for about 3.5, 4 weeks solidly, and then looks like we're going to be home for a little bit longer. And when I say home, under the roof. But it's actually been great, mate. And look, there's such a unique time in all of our lives right now that no one really knows how to deal with it, or where it's going to go, or when it's going to end, or what this thing looks like in times. So the only thing you can really control, I guess, is that you wake up each morning with a goal and an idea and a really positive mindset where you're looking forward to spending some time with the kids, put a few jobs down of interacting, do a bit of exercise to keep yourself sane as well. Take care of all those jobs that your missus has been telling you need to do for the last 3 years. Ooh, and actually just achieve a few things every day, and still put some plans in place for when this thing, which it will, once everything gets back to normal, and it might be a while, but once things get back to normal, and it will get back to normal, so that you're able to actually then launch straight into it and know that you can look back and say, well, I actually had 4, 6, 8 weeks at home where I was forced to stay at home, and I invested some really cool memories in that time as well. And then, we might be on the road for the next 4 or 5 years solidly. So you'll be longing for those times we had it at home. So now we've got them, trying to really make the most of it.
So you're banking this. This is home time, honey. I haven't been away for 5 weeks, 8 weeks. So you're chalking up to come against. So you're still hotels. You're still home for a bit, and then hotels. You're still living that similar kind of lifestyle, then, yeah.
Once this gets back to normal. Yep. Yeah, that is very much, still living the life as
have you got a couple of par threes? Have you got a couple of par threes out there yet? A couple of little chip and putts out there?
No, I've got horses on us, so there's no room for any golf course action out here. We've got 12 horses on the property at the moment, so it's pretty busy. But that's great. So it's good for the kids.
Do the kids ride? Do the kids get up on them, or are they just go and feed them a bit here?
Well, my daughter does. One of my daughters rides, but these are thoroughbreds. I know. They're prepping for racing, really. So
they're a bit taller than you, aren't they?
They're not quite ready to ride them. What's that?
They're a bit taller than you, a little bit. Yeah.
They're a little bit bigger than me. That's right.
Sorry. Hey, look, there's let's. I want to go inside your head in that World Cup final, and I have a different perspective than I think a lot of maybe New Zealand media or people that watch the game and have an opinion. Now, I saw you the first over of that final. Stark, you wanted to take him on, and I saw you play probably the most mentally strong innings of your life, and it lasted not very long. Is that how you see it? I see that you going out there and trying to whack him early as one of the strongest things you've done mentally, because that was how you had played the tournament, and the weaker may have gone out there and actually just nudged him for a couple or nicked off in the first over or whatever, but going out there and trying to whack him was the most mentally strong thing that you could have done. Is that how you see it, or is that a little bit, am I sort of polishing it a little bit too much?
I probably haven't thought of it quite like that. I appreciate it, but for me, it was just about, well, my seat on the bus was very clear, very definitive, and I'd been able to execute it for majority of that tournament, or for majority of that year, to be fair. It was it was a real purple patch in my life and in my career where things were just happening. Like if I rolled two dice, that they were coming up sixes. It was everything I kind of had hoped or wished for as a kid. I was living my best dream as out on the field and captaining my country, and how lucky was I that I had the opportunity where all the stars aligned that World Cup was at home, and I was captaining it, and we're going to play against Australia in the World Cup final at the MCG in front of a full house, and I was going to face the first ball. I was going to face first over against the fastest bowler in the world, and like they are. I mean, how many times have you lived that dream as a kid? How many times have you dreamed that dream as a kid in the backyard, growing up, playing backyard cricket? I don't know about you, but it must have been a 1,000 times, 10,000 times.
No, not me. I didn't want to face him at all. So that's your dream, that one.
But so I was just living my best dream. I went to bed the night before, and I was thinking, I just wanted to be authentic the next day, and also I didn't want to hand the advantage to Australia, if that makes sense. So I wanted to win the toss, I wanted to bat, and try and put some runs on the board and see how they were able to handle the pressure of that. I didn't want to hand the advantage to them and win the toss and bowl, and then Australia put on a big score, and hey, in hindsight, maybe that was the wrong decision, but I just felt that if we were able to take Australia on in a pressure environment where we were sky high in our belief of our abilities, then we could stand there and go toe to toe with them and say, we are capable of beating you guys in your own backyard, and we will take whatever you throw at us, and we're going to throw it back at you, and I'm going to do that right from the word go. That I thought that was the right option, and in the end, sometimes you're allowed to admit as well when your opposition is just too good. And Mitchell Starc on that day, I watched the replay of the group game the other day, and then I know I've seen the vision of the final.
Yep.
Now he bowled very similar deliveries in his first three balls to me in the group game as what he did in the final. Yep. But the ball didn't swing, and it wasn't quite as fast. So he didn't quite get it right. Whereas in the final, the biggest stage of all, he got it right. Yeah. And I've got to respect that, and I've got to take my hat off to him and say, you're too good for me on the day. And I think a lot of people, they question my approach, but they don't necessarily give the credit where credit's due. That was some outstanding bowling from Mitchell Starc as well. And I actually went back and sat in the dressing room after, and I just said to myself, like, this game teaches us so many things. You can have, I was inch perfect in my preparation. I was trained to the minute for that moment. I could not get any better, any sounder, any more ready for that moment. And I literally forgot to watch the ball. And that's because I wanted it so much. for my team, not for me. I wanted it for my team and for my country because it might have been something quite sensational. I wanted it that much that I forgot the fundamental aspect of the game, which was watching the ball. And the other thing I sort of thought, I think post that, mate, is like looking back now, I know that was 5 years ago. Does it change me whether we win or we lose that World Cup final? And it actually doesn't, mate. Like the journey and the trip and the ride that our country went on throughout that World Cup was way more than whether we had success or failure at the final moment. And yeah, you might have a World Cup trophy and geez, they might have, like the accolades which go with that. But does it change it? Does it change the impact that you guys were able to have as a sporting team on your country during that time? I don't think so.
And that's why I didn't premise the question that way, because like you guys were no, don't take that as a the bit for me that I've never heard anyone say is that what you did was the truest thing you could have done. If you had gone out and played any other way, then it wouldn't have been how New Zealand had been doing so well in the tournament. It would have been the wrong game plan. You went out and did what you did, which is the toughest thing, I think, in that scenario to do. Sure, you said you've made a bit of a fundamental, but I think I congratulate you for going out and playing like that. And when I explain it to a few friends, they come around and they start thinking about it in a different way. So, mate, I was phenomenal piece of bowling, and que sera, but not a bad tournament, yeah.
Great tournament, and I think the impact of that tournament is about to be seen in the next wave of cricketers which come through our country. And when you've only got 4.5 million people, you need to be trying to grab all the talented ones you can and grabbing them and bringing them towards cricket, because we need as much resource coming through as we possibly can. I think the inspiration of that tournament, the way the guys not only played, but the way they carried themselves it really hit the mark with New Zealanders, that humble and kind of exciting brand of cricket, but also the fact that they could our country would walk through the airport and sit there and have a 5-minute conversation with a Tim Southey or a Dan Corey or Kyle Mills or Grant Elliott, all the Kane Williamson, Ross Taylor, all of those guys, and we were just a representation of our country for a 6-week period where they absolutely loved it, and it was all encompassing. We dominated the news from start to finish for a 6-week period. In our country, we know that that's almost impossible when we've got the All Blacks. But we were never trying to be the All Blacks either. I think that's the important part. But we're never trying to compete with them. We're just trying to be ourselves and try and represent our country. And I think that has inspired the next generation to hopefully choose cricket.
That's an interesting little tidbit in terms of trying to compete with and trying to be more popular than the All Blacks. I wasn't expecting that to be anything, and I would have never thought that. But that was something that was going through your minds at the time. You thought, gee whiz, we could be bigger than the All Blacks here.
No, it wasn't that we were bigger, but we at that. For that period, we were certainly dominating the headlines. Yeah. But it was an important thing for us to not ever try and be the All Blacks. We could take out some lessons from the All Blacks, but we could never compete with them. And don't try and be someone, you're not, just be who we are and try and operate in the space that we're in. And we'll have our 15 minutes of fame when the opportunity comes. And it came during that 6-week campaign.
Hey, so there's one thing that I'm really annoyed about. I'd probably use the word pissed off about, jealous about, is that you started scoring stupid amounts of runs after I finished playing. The 300, the Basin, the crazy runs during that World Cup and all. So I have a little bit of a bone to pick with you. What happened after I finished that you decided to up your game?
Well, I finished wicket keeping for a start.
True, good point. Nicely done.
Yeah, started batting up the order a little bit, but no, I don't know, mate. Again, I was a late maturing type of cricketer, and I think the captaincy sat on my shoulders reasonably well, and it got more out of me than I probably thought was possible. And the 300 was an example of that. Yeah, I had a bit of luck early in my innings on that 300. But that took me to places I didn't think I ever had mentally within me, and taught me some amazing lessons. And yeah, it was something I look back on and say, geez, at the start of my career, I never thought that was something that I'd be able to achieve. So feel pretty humbled to be able to do so.
Hey, mate, run us through that, just the emotions of that last Test innings in Christchurch. Give me a little feel. Give me a little feel. I know everybody was there, and you've got a pretty proud South Island, Christchurch, Dunedin sort of heritage. So pretty. Run me through it. Don't tell me about it. Just give me the feels.
Well, so I was very lucky. New Zealand Cricket hosted a tent for, so invited about 50 of my closest mates from around New Zealand and even Australia, etc. as well. And so they were all there, and of course they all arrived the day before, so they were pretty festive throughout the entire Test match. But for me, it was an opportunity to be able to sign off. I was living in Christchurch at the time, about 5 minutes away from the ground, so I drove to the ground myself in the morning after seeing my kids at home and my wife, and arrived at the ground, knew it was going to be the final Test match that I'd be doing that. Going out on my terms, which was pretty awesome, and lucky enough to play as long as I did, and then to know that you're going to go out against Australia at home, which was a conscious decision as well, because it was a T20 World Cup not long after. But for me, I was kind of, whilst I loved the captaincy, it also it had started to take a bit of a toll on, because it was so all-encompassing, that I wanted to still leave the game being myself rather than being a shadow of myself if I had continued. And then therefore potentially lessening the impact that you had on the time that you had it. So I knew that was why I wanted to finish against Australia in the purest form of the game, which was always my favourite Test cricket. And when I turned up and saw the wicket and I saw how green it was, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. I know I'm going to lose this toss, and we lost the toss. We found ourselves batting against very good bowling lineup as well, Australia. And I was in the change room with BJ Watling as Kane Williamson was out there trying to defend. I think he was batting with Ross at the time. He was batting with Ross. And they were trying to, and I think they both got good defensive games, and they were trying to defend the ball left, right and centre, and just kept nipping back and playing and missing. And I turned around to BJ, so mate, Kane Williamson's got the best defensive game in the world, in my opinion, and he can't lay a bet on it. I've got no defensive game. There's no way I'm going to go out there and try and defend here. There's only one way I can play. And he looked at me, sort of rubbed his hands together as BJ does, and he's like, "Oh, this is going to be fun." And then so I went out there and I was just going to try and be aggressive, and I could just say la vie, you know. It was if it was to be, it was to be. If it was not, then I could handle that too, knowing that it had been a pretty good ride. And I don't know what it was. It was just sort of written in the stars, which it worked out the way it did. You
were playing true though. Again, I go back to playing true. That was your decision based on that surface, and that was the truest thing you could do. And there's confidence in that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And I think once you then commit to that, how you're going to play, the style that you want to play in a circumstance like that, then you've got to try and break it down into some sort of semblance of a game plan. So for me, I quickly then switch from, okay, I'm going to have to be aggressive here, and I need to find a way to stop them bowling top of off stump, because that's the area where I can't defend. So that's why. So then you go, okay, well, what game plan do I need? Well, I want them to bowl. They're going to bowl top of off stump. What's a shot that I can counteract that with, or potentially the cut shot?
Yep.
So therefore, give yourself a bit of room. So maybe bat on leg or outside leg, so that if they do bowl top of off stump, you can actually cut it. Yes, not going to come without an element of risk.
You can just say, yeah.
That's right. So then what would they normally do if you're then cutting that? What do bowlers normally do they normally go, well, I'm going to bowl a bit fuller. Mm-hmm. So they bowl a bit fuller. So then you've had to commit in your own head that you're driving along the ground is going to be hard if they do bowl full. So it's actually less risk trying to hit him over the top because the ball's going to stop in the wicket. So you start to sort of put some sort of game plan. And then there's those bowlers who don't change. They're just going to bowl the same ball. So they're the ones you go, okay, well, maybe I have to run down the wicket to try and get him to change because I need him to back his length off. So you try and sort of formulate a game plan on the back of your initial commitment to the style that you're going to play in that time. A little bit like if you decide you're going to play a drop anchor type innings, you're going to try and bat for a long period of time. What shots do you not play and what shots do you have to take out? Well, if you decide to play ultra aggressively in a circumstance like that, you need to work out what shots you are going to play and get them to try and bowl to you in those areas. But anyway, that's all. It was a few years ago, so let's move on.
Okay, so coaching time now. How easy is it to give someone a license? How easy is it to go, look at that pitch that suits you, go do your thing? How easy is it to hand that over?
Well, it's funny. What I've sort of worked out so far in a short period coaching is that some guys actually don't want a license either. They prefer to work out in their own way the method that they want to get to the freedom element. So they need to go through the gears to get to freedom, which is understandable as well. The thing I need to keep putting back on the players too is that because it's not normal to have loyalty at the selection table I've worked out, but I need to keep putting back onto them, and they need to understand that I will always be loyal when it comes selection time, because I think it's such an important part of building teams which can play a positive and aggressive form of cricket. And I look at England as a classic example of that in their one-day side under Owen Morgan. But my message to players and their understanding of it, there may be a disconnect there. So I need to try and work on how do I get that message through to them that they can trust that come selection time I'll be loyal based on if they're going to try and implement this style of play. And also working out that some people just don't have that in them as well. And that's okay. They can play a different way and be ultra successful. It's just working out what seat that person will sit on the bus.
So that's what I've been going, just having the license to say, just go and do your thing. And whatever that person's thing is, whether it be the Wallop or the sitter and the Kane Williamson, whatever role it be, giving them that freedom to just play their own role, that'll be something that'll be pretty familiar around the teams that you'll end up coaching.
Yeah, definitely. And also less about hitting the ball in the middle of the bat at training and more about what are you actually confronted with tomorrow come game time. When you enter the game, whether it be T20, whether it be one days, whether it be test cricket, when you enter the game, how are you going to be able to take it back to our first point as a bowler, as a batter, how are you going to be able to get into the game, to stay in the game long enough to then be able to show your talent? So who's going to be bowling? What's the pitch going to be doing? How are they trying to get you out? What shots can I and can't I play? Where's the wind direction? Where's the short boundary if I need to take a risk? Who can I take a risk against? Who do I need to be careful against? And balance all that out, put it all in it. And to me, there's a lot of emphasis on technique and hitting the ball in the middle of the bat at training, and he looks ready because he's smacking them at training. Well, none of that actually really works. Training should be used to move yourself forward so that you can be at your absolute best come game time, and at your most freest in your mind to be able to make good decisions. And some guys are technicians, that can work because they're mostly geniuses, those guys. But for the mere mortals, most cricketers, that if you can add the element of preparation and almost paint your innings or your entry point into the game, then that's going to help a lot more. So that's something that I'll try and obviously implement a little bit. And also probably one of my biggest strengths will be around the cultural stuff and just trying to understand the players and what their motivations are and where they're at in their careers and what they, what are the little sparks that they need to be able to take the next step in those careers, or are they happy where they're at, in which case, what do they need to maintain it? So they're all the little things which I'm looking forward to the challenges of. I've had a little taste so far, but hopefully it works out. The other thing is working with with the captains, because that's really key
Yeah.
too. Every captain's different.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they're the ones on the field that you need to be able to give them with the best assets to represent themselves.
Yeah, something Dan said the other day when I was speaking to Daniel Vittori. He says when he sort of took over coaching roles, he was still doing a lot of captaining when he was the coach, and he had to make a real conscious effort to give the captain all the power and coach to step back. So that's something you've already sort of recognised and can see happening.
Yeah, and I think probably my first, my first coaching gig with Trinidad, I think that was probably the thing. You naturally sort of start thinking as a captain rather than saying, well, actually, what does a captain need? And what does the environment need from the captain? And how do you give the captain the greatest resource while at the same time keeping them honest too? And I think that's a real key, and that building that relationship and being tight in that relationship is important too. But you need to have robust conversations, but again, always publicly support them. And I think that that's something I've already worked out that I need to improve on, which is good, because I'm still learning and I'm going to make mistakes in that role too. But you just hope that the stuff that you can bring, the good stuff you can bring, will outweigh that. And I enjoy the pressure of cricket as well. And sometimes I like to make decisions in pressure moments, and sometimes captains need to make those decisions rather than coaches. So I need to understand where that sort of sits as well. But it's going to be a fascinating journey, mate. And it took me a few years being captain to really get where I wanted to get to and where we needed to go, and something which has hopefully been long lasting since. And no doubt it'll take the same with coaching. You're not going to walk straight in and be this outstanding coach. You're going to make some mistakes.
I have a feeling one of your first games you captained a New Zealand team and was Lilac Hill over in Perth. We played against an Australian A team, or a Western Australian sort of selection team. I think it took us 4.5 hours to bowl our 50 overs. Quite often because David Hussey kept putting me over the back of out of the park. But in terms of what you just said there and where you ended up as a captain, I think that road matches up with what you're talking about as a coach, where you're starting from and where you're heading towards. Is that you see it just getting taken off?
Yeah.
You were always reading.
Yeah. I think you're right. You just come slicker.
Sorry, mate.
Well, I think that's a really good summation, because it takes 4.5 hours. You're trying to make all those decisions, but ultimately you got to nail it in 3.5. So, and over at the end of your career, you were finishing with the end of your captaincy career. You actually finishing with a time up your sleeve, because you're just slicking the ship a little bit to be able to get it right. And hopefully that'll be the same with coaching. That I'm a bit lucky as well, because I've had like Stephen Fleming is a very good friend of mine and a good mentor, and he's been arguably the best T20 coach in the world. And I've had him to be able to lean on a lot through my career. And even now, he's still, even though we're competing against each other, he's still, offering up words of wisdom and experience for me. So hopefully he's helped to, just like he did in my captaincy career, where he was always helping me through his experiences and that friendship. Hopefully through his sort of same space a little bit quicker. But we'll see. I might be hopeless. Who knows?
Well, so there's a chance you won't be. How was it? Look, I remember I played under Flam. I played under Daniel. Played under you only a couple of times. Very, very infrequently towards the end. That going from Stephen Fleming's post-match speeches to Daniel Vittori's post-match speeches to then yours, how did that weigh on your shoulders, having to front those kind of those interactions, being able to go and, geez, yeah, we weren't good enough today and we learned some lessons, and then being able to actually go, shit, yeah, we were pretty good today?
You mean from a media point of view, or from
how did you going about sort of constructing those post-match, when it hasn't been good for the team? Not quite South Africa bad early days, but you know, Splam and Vittori were very good at standing up and saying, look, getting the post-match speeches very right. Did that weigh heavily with you?
Yeah, look, I was pretty lucky as well because I had good media guys around me. Callum Elder was my media man through the time that I was captain in New Zealand, and he was a young guy who I really liked the idea because he was kind of always say to me, you need to say it in the way that is authentic to you. So I was always conscious of being myself, whether you know, was good, bad, or ugly. But I also always tried to operate in a reasonably level state of it, because I think the game is so inconsistent that if we had a good day, I didn't want to be standing at the top of the mountain saying we're the greatest team going around. And if we had a bad day, I didn't want to be in the depths of despair in the quarry saying, where did it all go wrong? It was just, let's just operate. If we're trending in the right direction, we're going to have some good days, we're going to have some bad. We need to stay true to ourselves. We need to stay in our little zone, still have honest conversations if we didn't get things right, and still pat each other on the back if things are going well, but just not get too high or too low. So that was very, very conscious of that externally as well as internally. And there was times where you had to give guys rockets, where you had to pull them back into line, and it wasn't comfortable sometimes. I much preferred to be the nice guy, but you're not helping everyone if you're being the nice guy all the time either. And the guys knew that. And Tim Southey was probably the one who I rode the hardest out of everyone, mainly because I just could see how strong his leadership qualities were and how pivotal he was to the overall bowling group and team. That if he was mucking around, which he had that young sort of free-spirited nature which he did, then that was fine to muck around a little bit. But if that then transferred onto the pitch where it was compromising our play, then he needed pulled into line. And Tim's now probably one of my strongest friends in cricket, and that's that respect is something which is really important. And a lot of that comes from the messages you're delivering and how you go about things. But also, we still celebrate our successes very much within the environment. I was brought up in an era where cricket was about the camaraderie and the team sport, the sit down, good, bad, or ugly at the end of a game. You sit down, you have a beer with your teammates, and then the next day you turn the page and you move on, you start working towards the next game. And so that was how I was brought up. And it wasn't until the latter stage of my career where I actually felt comfortable being able to be that person on a regular basis, that you could just take that kind of grassroots sort of back to the game.
Sort of a strange question, because I never got to. What was it like playing in front of your kids? What was it like having them? They grew up around it, but what was it? Was there ever this extra pressure or this extra joy, or was there ever an extra moment of this is kind of cool, or did it, because they were always there when you were playing, was it always sort of much the same?
No, there was definitely times where you sort of stopped and you thought, oh, this is pretty cool, like having kids at a young age has been really cool. But so they've been able to enjoy the journey that you've been on and this wild ride that is international sport, and they saw the success and failures as well up close and real. And a lot of the time it probably didn't resonate with them, but it might do when they get a little bit older, and that's kind of what I would anticipate. Pretty amazing that my wife was able to take them around the world as freely as what she did. It was quite surreal, the efforts that they went to travel to come and support me, and that was a big key too. I came in as a 20-year-old kid, single, young man who didn't really know anything, and came out the end of my career with 3 kids, been married for 15 years, and had a career, and that's the formative years of one's life, and you're going to learn a lot of lessons along the way. So that was really cool to be able to grow in that way, and to watch my family grow and to see my family being around it.
Hard for,
but at the same time,
hard for Liz. That's a tough lifestyle to do, to bring up kids, to go from hotel to hotel, not just with a cricket player, but with and taking kids and luggage, etc. That's tough on Liz too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100% it was tough on her, and that was one of the transitions that we hopefully made as a group too. Is we tried to involve the families a lot more. You know, like they're part of it. You encourage that. You want people to grow, and you want people to, at the end of their cricketing careers, you actually kind of want them to finish early because they want to spend time with their families, because that means that they've grown as people and that they've developed, and that's, you know, we encourage families coming on the road, and we try to cater for them and provide the best environment we possibly could, and Liz was amazing at that. I was lucky that I had her, that I've got her to be able to, you know, and still bringing the kids away now that I'm coaching and commentating too, because the time away was so hard, but it's such a good opportunity for us all to try and still invest in our family even though we're still working.
Hey, this is probably the only this one's a tough one for me to ask, but that whole time you spent in London with the courts and with the Cairns case, how would that result regardless? How was that on you as a person? How does that how do you sit back now and see that that whole process?
You there?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Did you hear? So with your time in London, with the courts, with the Cairns stuff, how does that not result regardless? How do you sit back and reflect on that time and that energy that was put into that case? How does that stick with you still now? Is that still something that floats around?
No, I wouldn't say it floats around now. Again, I was just proud of the fact that I stayed true to myself. The easiest thing would have been to have done nothing. But, you know, I sort of, you know, I went over there and did what I needed to do. It was never about wanting to see Chris guilty or not guilty. It was nothing about that. It was just about me saying what happened and doing it, you know, in quite a high pressure setup. And I was very proud of the fact that I fulfilled that obligation. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that it didn't have an impact on me at the time, because I was still trying to captain New Zealand. I was trying to put that all to one side. I had 3 kids sort of all developing. I had my wife going on. I had business stuff here, there and everywhere. I had that I was dealing with. I had a former New Zealand captain who was trying to oust me as like an older one. So there was plenty of things going on, and at the same time, you're still very much trying to remain steadfast and committed in your belief of where the team should be going and how he's going to play. So that was really difficult, but it is what it is, mate. It doesn't make a difference to my life anymore. I'm just pleased that I stood up and I was able to fulfill my obligations in what was a high pressure environment.
Yeah, high pressure environment. I get back onto the park to finish. You played pretty hard. You man at night, man in the morning was one of your famous, was something I learned from you. I could never do either, but that was fine. Did you ever, early days, sure, maybe to an extent, you didn't really get in any trouble on the park, did you? You might have been a little bit cheeky, but you never really got yourself in any trouble with umpires or with opposition, did you? You sort of stood pretty clean there, didn't you?
Yeah, not too bad. I think I was a bit cheeky and all of that, but again, it didn't really. Yeah, it didn't really sit that comfortably with me. I sort of did it because I kind of thought that was what I was meant to do, if that makes sense. Yeah, I still stuck up for what I believed in. That's for sure. But yeah, there's probably a few times where I look back and I just think, grow up. But that's and at the end of your career, you just laughed and joked at those kind of things. And I think when you're younger, you think it makes a difference to the result of the game and to your potential performance.
Yeah.
At the end of your career, you realise it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever, and all you're doing is wasting time and energy worrying about it. You're out there competing. The guy who's at the other end is competing against you. But it's just a battle between bat and ball, people from different countries having a go. And if you're good enough on the day, then you get the accolades. If he is, then he gets the accolades. But you move on, have a beer, turn the page, move on. Whereas when you're younger, it's kind of, you think that you've got this secret ability because you can sledge someone. It makes no difference.
Yeah. Mate, the funniest thing I've ever seen was you and Darren Powell, West Indian game at Napier. You remember the game? What was happening out there when that all happened?
Well, I actually didn't say anything. So
I know. No.
Yeah.
You were just running at him.
I walked down the wicket, and he said, "If you walk down the wicket again, I'm going to throw the ball at you." And I was like, "Well," but I needed to walk down the wicket because, I was trying to advance the game, and if I stayed in my crease, he would have just been able to get me out comfortably. So I was like, "Well, this is what I need to do." So I walked down the wicket, and he went to throw the ball at me as he's running in. He went to throw the ball. But I think he got to about here and he realised I'm probably not allowed to do this. And so he kind of held on to it. And so instead of it going at me, it went at second slip. And everyone kind of laughed in the end. But it was a bit heated for a while. But I didn't say anything then.
No. I know you could see that with just the frustration on Powell because you were running at him. You were in a phase at that time where you were walking out a lot of batsmen. You were taking it to them. You were still keeping at that stage as well. Conscious to do, or just part of the role in the team.
Well, I think for a start, I was trying to bat like a batsman when I was wicket keeping, and I was trying to be very disciplined and methodical and stay on the crease and let the ball go outside off stump and defend the ball straight and leave a few shots at the door. But then I didn't have the defensive game that was going to be successful, and so I then started to try and play a little bit more freely, which was what got me my start in international cricket anyway, because I was able to score runs at youth cricket and also in my first couple of games at first class cricket, and I did it through freewheeling stroke play.
Right. Mate, I did enjoy that Darren Powell scenario. That was still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Hey mate, thank you so much for your time. That's awesome. Go and see your horses, give them a feed, say hi to Liz and Riley. The other two I've never met, I don't think. So mate, awesome to have you. I appreciate you giving me the time.
Pleasure, mate. Safe travels back to the UK, and we'll meet again.
Yeah, hopefully. And hopefully go well in Kolkata.
Thanks, brother.